Car Obsession is proudly supported by Exchange My Car, Carly and Draggy. For a limited time only, use Car Obsession 10 to get money off with Carly, and there's also a discount code for Draggy as well, which again is Car Obsession 10. All of the details are in the video description below. Hello guys, welcome back to Car Obsession and welcome to another point of view drive. This time it is all about the brand new fully electric Cupra Born, and my word, it is a striking thing to look at, isn't it? Very pleasing on the eye. This car is finished in Geezer grey. I would have preferred the Aurora blue because that is simply stunning, but even so, in this Geezer grey, it is just a very fine EV to look at. So much better looking than the Volkswagen ID3 that this car is based on. Now this is the range-topping V3, so I have massive alloy wheels. These are 20 inches, but they do look rather snazzy, and overall this is a tidy looking car, very tidy in fact. The rear lights, they remind me of the Seat Tarraco, very similar in that regard. Now the weird thing is, I haven't seen any other Cupra Borns on the road until today. You might not be able to see it, it's over there in the distance, but there's another Cupra Born finished in the same colour. You probably can't see that, but I can't get too close because, you know, there's people having a gathering, and I'm sure they don't want me intruding with my point of view camera. They'd probably tell me politely to Foxtrot Oscar. Anyway, let's get into the car. The key, by the way, is really snazzy. I do hope you can see that. Very nice, very glossy. I wouldn't like to drop it though. But yes, into the car we go. Oh, it's a lot less windy in here, I'll tell you that for nothing, unless I fart, which I'll try not to do. Okie dokie. Right. Now, although you have an engine, well, this hasn't got an engine, it's EV, but it does, in my defence, it does say start engine stop. Although you've got a button down here, you don't actually need to use it, because if you just put your foot on the brake and then away you go. So that button is actually rather needless. Right, away we go in the Cupra Born. Hopefully you'll get a glimpse of the one I mentioned a few moments ago. There we go, it's just there. Hopefully you can see it. And that is, yeah, the only other Cupra Born I've seen on the road. Make sure I'm good to go. Now for starters, let's get it into performance. So as you can hopefully see, I've got range, comfort, performance and individual drive modes, but let's get it straight into performance because why not? So the Cupra Born is Cupra's first fully electric car, and it is an electric hot hatchback. There are a few different battery options, of course, as well as different power options as well. So this is the 58 kilowatt hour battery. You can also have a 45 or a 77. The 77 comes as standard with the e-boost function, which gives you more power. The e-boost is also available for enjoying that corner there. The e-boost is also available for the 58 kilowatt hour battery, but I don't have that option. So I have 204 horsepower along with 310 newton meters of torque. If you prefer that in pound-feet, I will of course drop a caption below. Now if you go for the e-boost, that gives you around 230 horsepower. That gives you a quicker 0 to 62. This will do it in 7.3 seconds, which okay, isn't overly fast by today's standards, but it's still respectable, and it is about the same as a Mark 1 standalone Cupra R. Maybe not the best comparison because that car is getting on for 20 years old, so I don't think Cupra would quite like me using that comparison, but that is a hot hatchback, and I own a Mark 1 Leon Cupra R as it happens. The top speed, in case you're really wondering, is just south of 100 miles per hour. Now it is quite dark, the light is fading. I've squeezed this in at the end of my day's filming, so before some of you say, well, why didn't you do it earlier, or why didn't you do it when there's more light? I would have done if I had the chance. I have filmed 4 videos today, including this one, so yes, it's been busy. But anyway, that aside, so to begin with, as you would expect from an electric car, it is very quick off the mark. In fact, I've got nothing behind me, so I can actually come to a complete stop. Now, this doesn't have launch control, of course, but right, foot down, and it does genuinely, as you can tell by the change in angle, it does pin you back in your seat. So it is a quick car. In regards to pricing, the Cupra Born, it has the starting price of £34,175, and there are 3 trim levels available: V1, V2 or V3. I have the V3, so I've got plenty of bells and whistles, although the dynamic chassis control, the adaptive dampers, even on the range topping version, are an optional extra, which I am disappointed by. The car I'm sat in right now would normally start from £38,390, but as mentioned, I do have the Geyser Grey, or if you're watching this in America, the Geyser Grey paintwork, and that brings this to around £39,000. Because this car is over £32,500 or whatever the threshold is, you don't get any money back from the government. So if you're looking for an incentive, you're not going to get one. One incentive you do get though from getting this is having a hatchback which has genuine hot hatch performance. Okay, maybe it's not quite as fast as today's blisteringly quick hot hatches, but it's still respectable. This is based on the Volkswagen ID3, but of course you have a different body and different badges, as well as a different interior. The Cupra Born sits lower than the ID3, and it has sport suspension, but like I say, the dynamic chassis control is an optional extra, which this car doesn't have. The only option this car has is the paintwork. So a bit sniffly, a bit of hay fever creeping in. Sorry, that noise was probably disgusting. I do apologise. As well as tweaking the suspension, the steering and the brakes have also been tweaked to give this car a sportier characteristic. And in all honesty, it is a sporty little number. When I first drove this car, I must admit I was quite underwhelmed. I had high hopes for this car. Ever since I saw the Cupra Born unveiled, I yearned to drive it, which is saying a lot, because to be honest, I don't have much of a EVs don't float my boat, basically. That's what I'm trying to say. Now, I do hope you can see the augmented kind of reality on the head-up display. So if I'm going to venture out my lane, can you see that? That's really cool. I like that. The head-up display is standard for the V3. But yes, as I was saying, the Born was one of very, very few EVs that I wanted to drive the moment I saw it. And that is high praise for Cupra. Initially, yeah, like I said, I was a bit underwhelmed. The more I've driven it though, the more I've come to really enjoy it. I wouldn't go so far to say it's fun per se. It is enjoyable, but maybe not quite as thrilling as other conventional hatchbacks that you can buy. In the corners though, the Cupra Born performs well, considering that this is on Eco tyres, the Continental Eco Contact 6. I would be quite intrigued to see how this car were to perform on stickier tyres such as Michelin Pilot Sport 4s or Goodyear Eagle F1s. But credit where credit's due, the Eco Contact 6s do hold their own in the corners. One downside with the Cupra Born is that it is a heavy car. Now, of course, batteries add weight, and even though this car is a similar-ish size to a Cupra Leon, this weighs in the region of 18 to 1900 kilograms. And I'm sorry, but for a car of this size, that weight is simply astronomical. And you can feel the weight through the corners. Now, the body lean, the body roll is pretty well controlled. I've got no complaints there. The steering is positive, although I would want the turning to be a bit sharper. It does feel a bit slow on the initial turn-in, but on the whole, the Cupra Born is good in the corners. The brakes do feel a bit numb on the initial dab on the pedal, but that could be said for almost any EV car. So that complaint, if you want to call it a complaint, is not exclusive to the Born. Right, let's stomp on the, I was going to call it the loud pedal, but that's not applicable in a car like this. Let's stomp on the power pedal, shall we call it. And away we go. Whoa. Yeah, that is brisk to say the least. Now in regard to range, because that is of course a very important thing, if you go for the 45 kilowatt hour battery, you'll get a range of around 210 miles. If you go for this battery, you'll get a range of around 260 miles. And if you go for the 77 kilowatt hour battery, you'll get around 335 to 340. But in this car at least, I would argue real world range, you're looking more like in the region between 210 and 225. So yeah, I'm not quite sure if you could really hustle 260 miles out of this car. I'm sure someone can. No, that someone is not me though. Now, as I've mentioned, this is sitting on rather large alloys. I'd say arguably larger than they need to be. That's merely my opinion. But even so, the road noise, if you can hear it, is well controlled. There is a bit of wind noise. In fact, I'd say there's more wind noise than there is road noise. And that really surprises me, because normally the bigger the alloy, the lower the refinement. Now, the low speed ride is quite firm. It is quite jiggly because this is running on large alloys. But to be fair, when you get it up to speed like I am now, the ride is perfectly compliant. And I've driven this quite a bit, and on a longer distance, it's more agreeable than you may think. Even though this car isn't designed to be a cruiser, it does cruise along with very little fuss or complaint. Oh, there's a fellow EV, Mustang Mach-E. Oh. The inside is a nice place to be, although it's not the most ergonomic. So, for example, you've got the drive selector, the gear selector, whatever you want to call it, just here, which is very similar to the BMW i3. But as you can hopefully see, the rim of the steering wheel completely cuts off the lettering. Now, to be fair, it's quite easy to use. You twist it that way for drive and twist it that way for reverse. So one would argue that you don't need the lettering, but it seems like a design flaw to have that, and you can't actually see the lettering. Now, this 5.3 inch unit is attached to the steering column, so as I will demonstrate, I'll quickly pull over here, because I'm not going to do it whilst I'm driving. That would be very silly. I'll be careful, I've got a few ruts here. As you can see, when you adjust the steering wheel, the unit moves with it, which I like, but like I say, you can't, hopefully you can see there's lettering in there, and yep, you can't see it. But like I say, that's very easy. That's drive and that's reverse, so you don't need the lettering as such. Got a reversing camera with front and rear parking sensors, as you can see. Other things about the interior that don't make sense. For starters, you've got the haptic feedback buttons. So these buttons are touch sensitive, and when you're driving along, it's quite easy to hit these inadvertently, which is quite annoying. And I find quite often when I'm reversing and I'm doing more palm steering, I'm always activating these. And annoyingly, when I do want to adjust the volume, you need more finesse than you may expect to operate it. Also, the rear windows they're a bit quirky. So that's my window, obviously, and you may see, hopefully see, there's only two switches. So how do you operate the rear windows? Well, you have to hit this touch sensitive button here. You'll hear soft click, and now I can do that window. And then if I want to go back to mine, I hit that again and then do that. It's almost as if Cupra have solved a problem that never existed, and I just think that's something to go wrong. So I just think that's very silly. One last complaint. Oh, that's the wrong way. I always do that. One last complaint about the interior. Actually, I've got two other complaints. The glove box is tiny. The touchscreen, as lovely as it is to look at, if you've watched any of my other Cupra or Seat content in recent years, you'll know that I'm not a big fan of this infotainment system. It's very pretty, but it simply isn't as user intuitive as I would like. But that's enough gripes on the interior. Overall, it is a nice place to be. I love these seats, and these seats are actually made using upcycled marine plastics, don't you know? Which is good for the environment, of course. Getting the plastic out of the sea and putting it to good use. I do like the ambient lighting, which you may be able to see as the light is beginning to fade. It does change with the drive modes, although you can actually customise the ambient lighting to your desires. As you can imagine, with it being in performance, it's a bold red. But just to show you what it looks like in the other modes, so if I go to range, you'll see it kind of goes a teal kind of colour. Hopefully you can see it. Comfort, you go blue. Performance is of course red, and individual is a purplish kind of colour. It's quite nice actually. It's quite pleasant. It's quite calming, that colour. But I want performance. Yes. Oh, this car is good in the corners. One thing I haven't mentioned, even though this is a hatchback, this is actually rear-wheel drive, so power is of course fed to the back, and you can feel it through the corners. Sometimes you can feel the rear just helping to guide the chassis around the corner. Now, to touch upon the more mundane things such as visibility. Visibility on the whole is pretty good. The rear window is rather shallow, but I've not had any issues seeing out the back. You do have this kind of triangular piece of glass here to help with forward visibility. Well, I say forward/side visibility, but the A-pillars are still quite thick, and I have found that they have restricted my vision a bit at junctions. And the door mirrors, well, the door mirrors, they did a job. Now, hopefully you can see, because this bit of road is a bit more uneven, I am being jostled a little bit in my seat. You can probably see my head bobbing up and down a little bit. Oh, twig. If you want more, well, if you want stronger regenerative braking, you can hit that again and you get the B mode. So if I lift off now, the car slows down more progressively and that energy is being fed back into the batteries. But I'll just leave it in D mode for the time being. In regard to other standard features, I've got a massage function for the driver's seat and the front passenger, which I really like. Be quiet. I've got the 12-inch touchscreen, which is 2 more inches than you get in the Volkswagen ID3. 2 inches. It all counts, lads. Front and rear parking sensors and the reversing camera I demonstrated earlier. Heated front seats, heated steering wheel, dual zone climate control. Of course, I've got Bluetooth, DAB radio, navigation and smartphone connectivity. That almost goes without saying. And of course I've got the drive modes as well. I've also got gesture control, which I can take or leave if I'm going to be honest. Even though this car is rear wheel drive, it always feels neutral in its approach, which some may like, some may not like. If you're expecting something that will go sideways with ease, then this won't be the car for you. But I doubt many of you are really looking for that characteristic, that trait in a car like this. Now the batteries are situated under the car between the front axle and the rear axle, and this car has a near perfect 50-50 weight distribution, although because the batteries are underneath the car, the driver's seat is set higher up than I'd want. This is meant to be a performance car, yet it feels like I'm sat on the car, not in it. I would like to be sat lower, and yes, my seat is set to its lowest setting. Now, even though you've got all the batteries and everything underneath the car, you don't get a fruit, that's a front boot, but you do get, of course, a boot at the rear, which offers a pretty good 385 litres. Not the biggest available. you'll have to look at cars such as the Kia EV6 and the Hyundai Ioniq 5, but it's larger than cars such as the Renault Zoe, for example. I do really like that feature. I do hope you can see it. The kind of augmented reality lane keep assist. There we go, there it goes again. And it kind of curves with the road as well, which I actually really like. Some may think it's a bit gimmicky, but I think it's quite a cool feature personally. Oh, bumpy. Oh, look at that. It's nice, lovely Rolls Royce. Right, avoid that bump. There we go. And there we go, guys. Sorry. It's rather bumpy in here. I don't know if you've noticed. And once more, we finish with a lovely view of the beautiful South Downs. Very nice indeed, even though it is a little bit hazy. But yeah, I do hope you have enjoyed that video. If so, be sure to like, comment and subscribe. A big thank you to Cupra UK for loaning me this car for the week, and of course a big thank you to you guys watching as well. If you are subscribed, don't forget to click the bell icon so you get notified every time I make a video. But until the next time, guys, be sure to keep up the car obsession.